Jiho sat in the cold metal chair and tried not to shake. The room was too bright. Everything in the Galactic Institute was too bright for human eyes. Around him, 5 members of the Academic Integrity Council stared down from their elevated seats. They did not look happy. "Lee Jiho," Headmaster Veltaris said. His voice sounded like wind chimes. His body was made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. "Do you understand why you are here?" Jiho nodded. His throat felt dry. "The exam, sir. The quantum field theory exam." "Yes, the exam." Veltaris touched a panel on his desk. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed test scores. Jiho's name sat at the top with a perfect score. "You completed this examination in 47 minutes. "Yes, sir. This test is designed to take 6 hours. The average completion time is 5 hours and 32 minutes. Veltaris leaned forward. The crystals of his face caught the light. "No student in 300 years has completed it in under 4 hours. Jiho did not know what to say. He had finished when he finished. Was he supposed to sit there and pretend to work longer? Another council member spoke. This one was Dr. Cross, who had 8 tentacles and 4 eyes. His skin was dark purple and always seemed wet. "We have reviewed the security footage. You did not cheat in any conventional way. No hidden devices, no communication with outside sources, no pre-written notes." "I didn't cheat at all," Jiho said quietly. "Then explain." Dr. Cross's tentacle pointed at the hologram. Now it showed Jiho's actual test answers. Question 17 required 43 separate calculations. You wrote only the final answer. Question 21 needed a proof with at least 30 steps. You provided 5 steps and jumped to the conclusion. I did the math in my head." "Impossible." Dr. Cross's voice was flat. "The hexapod brain can maintain 8 parallel thought streams. Even we cannot perform 43 calculations simultaneously with perfect accuracy. The human brain is far more limited than ours." Jiho felt his face get hot. He was not stupid. He had worked hard to get into this school. Out of 8 billion humans on Earth, only 15 were chosen to attend the Galactic Institute. He had studied every day for 2 years to pass the entrance exams. And now they said he cheated? A third council member spoke. Her name was Professor Kilvara. She looked like a tall bird with silver feathers and 3 arms. "Lee Jiho, we scanned you before the exam. We scanned you after the exam. You have no neural implants, no technology in your body at all except for the standard translation chip all students receive." "I know," Jiho said. "Then how?" Veltaris asked. "How did you do this?" "I just looked at the problems, and I saw the answers." Jiho knew how that sounded. Crazy. Impossible. "I'm good at math. I always have been." Dr. Cross made a gurgling sound. It might have been a laugh. "Being good at mathematics means understanding the process. It means showing your work. You have no work to show. You provide only answers." The hologram changed again. Now it showed footage from the exam room. Jiho watched himself on the screen. He looked so small in that huge room designed for aliens of all sizes. On screen, he picked up his pen. He stared at the first question for maybe 10 seconds. Then he wrote the answer and moved on. Question after question, the same pattern. Look, think, write. Look, think, write. "What are you doing in these moments of stillness?" Veltaris asked. "What is happening in your mind?" "I'm solving the problem." "In 10 seconds?" "Sometimes faster. Sometimes it takes longer if it's complicated." Jiho watched the screen. He remembered that test. It had not felt difficult. The patterns in the questions were clear. The answers just appeared in his mind, like seeing a picture all at once instead of drawing it line by line. "This is not possible," Dr. Cross said. "Not naturally." "But I did it naturally." Jiho said. He was getting frustrated now. I don't have implants. You scanned me. What else do you want? Veltaris was quiet for a long moment. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of the station's air systems. Finally, he spoke. Lee Jiho, until we understand what is happening, we have no choice. You are suspended for 30 days. During this time, we will investigate further. Suspended? Jiho stood up. But I didn't cheat. Perhaps not intentionally, Professor Kilvara said. Her voice was softer than the others. But if you possess some ability we do not understand, we must determine if it violates the principles of fair academic assessment. You are not expelled, Veltaris added. Not yet, but you may not attend classes or take examinations until this matter is resolved. Jiho felt like the floor was falling away under him. Suspended. His parents would be so disappointed. Earth would be disappointed. He was representing his entire species, and now everyone would think humans were cheaters. You may go, Veltaris said. Jiho walked out of the council chamber on shaking legs. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. The hallway outside was empty except for one person, another human. His name was Doyen, and he was in Jiho's xenobiology class. Doyen pushed off from the wall where he had been waiting. He walked over to Jiho but did not say anything at first. They just stood there together, two humans in a school of 50,000 aliens. Finally, Doyen spoke. His voice was just above a whisper. They're going to study all of us now. Jiho looked at him. What? The other human students. I heard the council talking before you went in. If they can't explain how you did it, they're going to test all of us. They think maybe all humans can do it. Doyen's face was serious. Jiho, can other humans do what you did? Jiho thought about his friends back on Earth. His sister Minji, who could solve riddles instantly. His friend Suho, who always knew the right answer on multiple-choice tests, even when he had not studied. His math teacher, who could look at a problem and say the answer before anyone else had finished reading the question. I don't know, Jiho said. But that was a lie. He did know. Humans did this all the time. They just never thought about it before. It was normal. It was just how human brains worked. This is going to be a problem, Doyen said. Down the hall, a group of alien students walked past. They stared at Jiho and whispered to each other. News traveled fast in the Institute. Everyone probably knew already. The human who cheated. The human who was too good at math. Jiho watched them go. Then he looked back at Doyen. Yeah, he said quietly. I think you're right. The next morning, Jiho received a message on his datapad. He was to report to Laboratory 7 for cognitive testing. He did not want to go. He wanted to hide in his room and pretend none of this was happening. But hiding would not help. Laboratory 7 was in the medical wing of the Institute. Jiho had never been there before. The door opened automatically as he approached. Inside, the room was filled with strange machines, scanners, monitors, equipment Jiho did not recognize. A tall alien stood in the center of it all. He had pale green skin and large black eyes. His limbs were thin and graceful. Lee Jiho, he said. I am Dr. Thrain. I am a xenopsychologist. Do you know what that means? You study how different species think, Jiho said. Correct. Dr. Thrain gestured to a chair. Please sit. We are going to run some tests. Nothing will hurt. I simply want to observe how your mind works. Jiho sat down. Immediately, machines moved around him. Scanners hummed to life. Lights blinked on screens. Dr. Thrain handed him a datapad with a math problem on it. Solve this, Dr. Thrain said, and I want you to talk while you work. Tell me everything you are thinking. Jiho looked at the problem. It was about calculating the trajectory of an object through curved space. The answer came to him almost instantly, but he forced himself to slow down, to put words to what his brain was doing. Okay, so I see the mass of the object and the curvature value. If I... Jiho paused. How did he explain this? The shape of the curve tells me where it will bend, and the mass tells me how much. So the answer is... He wrote down numbers. Wait, Dr. Thrain said. He looked confused. You did not calculate the intermediate steps. I don't need to. I can see how they fit together. See how they fit together, Dr. Thrain repeated. He made a note on his own data pad. Interesting. Again, here is another problem. They did this for 2 hours. Problem after problem. Math, physics, logic puzzles. Every time, Jiho solved them faster than Dr. Thrain expected, and every time Dr. Thrain looked more confused. Finally, Dr. Thrain turned off the machines. He stared at Jiho for a long time. Your eyes, he said. What about them? When you read a problem, your eyes do not move in a linear pattern. Most species read left to right or top to bottom in a straight line. Your eyes jump around. You look at the middle, then the end, then back to the beginning. It is chaotic. Jiho shrugged. That's just how I read. But why? What are you looking for? The important parts. The numbers or words that matter. Jiho did not understand why this was strange. I don't need to read every word to understand what the question is asking. Dr. Thrain made more notes. He looked excited now. Lee Jiho, I need to test the other human students. Will you help me convince them to participate? Why? Because if this is something all humans can do, the council needs to know. Over the next week, all 15 human students at the institute were tested. Jiho watched as his friends went through the same process he had, and the results were shocking. Yuna was a biology student. They gave her a genetic sequence and asked her to identify the mutations. She found them in 3 minutes. The test was supposed to take an hour. When Dr. Thrain asked how she did it, Yuna said, I just looked for the parts that felt wrong, the parts that didn't fit the pattern. Hana studied engineering. They gave her a complex structural design and asked her to find the weak points. She pointed them out immediately. These joints will fail under stress, she said, and this support beam is in the wrong place. She was right about everything. Taiyang was an astrophysics student. They showed him star charts and asked him to predict where certain objects would be in 100 years. He calculated the orbits in his head. No computer, no equations written down. Just thinking. 12 out of 15 human students showed the same ability. They solved problems impossibly fast. They skipped steps. They just knew the answers. The 3 who did not show the ability were still good students, but they worked more slowly. They showed their calculations. They did things the way alien students did them. Dr. Thrain compiled all his data and presented it to the council. Jiho was not allowed to attend that meeting, but Yuna told him what happened afterward. She had friends who worked in the administration office. They're panicking, Yuna said. She sat on the floor of Jiho's dorm room. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy knot. Some of them think you're all using some kind of secret Earth technology. Others think humans are naturally telepathic and reading the answers from the test makers' minds. That's ridiculous, Jiho said. I know. But they don't understand how you're doing it, so they're making up explanations. Yuna pulled out her data pad. I've been researching. Did you know that almost every species in the galaxy processes information the same way? Sequential. Linear. Step by step. One thought follows another in a logical chain. So humans don't do that. I found some old Earth research on cognitive science. Humans use something called heuristics. It means we make shortcuts. We see patterns and jump to conclusions without processing every piece of information. Jiho thought about this. Is that bad? The aliens think it is. They think skipping steps means you don't really understand the problem. That you're just guessing. But I'm not guessing. I know the answers are right. I know, Yuna said, but they don't trust knowledge that doesn't come from obvious logical steps. That evening, Dr. Thrain came to Jiho's room. He looked tired. His large eyes seemed even larger than usual. "The council is divided," he said without greeting. "Some want to expel all humans from mathematics and science programs. They say if you cannot show your work in a way we understand, you cannot be properly educated or evaluated." Jiho felt cold. "That's not fair." "No, it is not." Dr. Thrain sat down on Jiho's desk chair. It was too small for him, and he looked uncomfortable. "But they are frightened. I have studied 140 sentient species in my career. Human cognition is completely unlike anything I have seen before. Your brains work in ways that seem impossible to us. We're not trying to be impossible. We're just being normal. For us." "I know, and that is what I told the council." Dr. Thrain leaned forward. "Lee Jiho, Earth is sending a delegation. Scientists and educators who understand human cognition better than I do. They will arrive in 3 days. Until then, try to be patient." After Dr. Thrain left, Jiho lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling. His room had a window that looked out at the stars. Thousands of them scattered across black space. Somewhere out there was Earth, home, where everyone's brain worked like his, and nobody thought it was strange. His datapad blinked. A message from Doyen. "Meeting in the human common room? Everyone's here. You should come." Jiho got up and walked down the hall. The human common room was small. Just one room set aside for the 15 human students to gather. When he arrived, everyone was already there, all 15 of them, sitting on chairs and on the floor. "We need to talk," Hana said. She was older than most of them, almost 25. "The aliens are trying to decide our future without us. We need to stand together." "What can we do?" someone asked. "We tell our story," Yuna said. "All of us. We show them that what we do is normal for humans, that we're not cheating or using tricks. We're just being ourselves." Jiho looked around at his fellow humans. They were scared. He could see it in their faces, but they were also angry and determined. "They're going to study us like lab specimens," Taeyang said quietly. "They're going to treat us like we're broken or dangerous." "Maybe," Jiho said. Everyone looked at him. "But maybe they're going to learn something. Maybe we all are." Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. Inside, 15 humans sat together and waited for Earth to send help. And in his office, Dr. Thrain reviewed his notes one more time, searching for answers that his sequential, logical mind could barely comprehend. The Earth delegation arrived on a cold Tuesday morning. Jiho watched their ship dock through the observation window. It was small compared to the massive alien vessels that came and went from the Institute every day. But to Jiho, it looked like hope. Ambassador Mira was the first to step off the ship. She was tall and wore a formal dark suit. Her hair was cut short and neat. Behind her came Dr. Jiwon, a neuroscientist from Seoul National University. She carried 2 large cases of equipment and data files. Jiho wanted to run to them, to hug them, to speak Korean with someone other than the 14 students he had been trapped with for 3 weeks. But protocol required that ambassadors meet with the council first. So he waited. The assembly hall was packed, every seat filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. The council sat at the front on their elevated platform. Jiho sat in the student section with the other humans. His hands were sweating. Ambassador Mira walked to the center of the room. She looked calm, confident. She bowed to the council, a gesture of respect that worked across most cultures. "Honored council members," she said, "thank you for allowing us to speak today. I understand there has been considerable concern about the cognitive abilities of human students." "That is an understatement," Dr. Cross said. His tentacles waved in agitation. Your students appear to violate the fundamental principles of mathematical reasoning. I assure you they do not. Ambassador Mira gestured to Dr. Jiwan. I have brought our leading expert on human cognition. Dr. Jiwan will explain what you have observed. Dr. Jiwan stepped forward. She looked nervous, but her voice was steady. What you are seeing is not cheating. It is not technology. It is evolution. The hall erupted in whispers. Headmaster Veltaris raised one crystal hand for silence. Dr. Jiwan continued. Humans evolved on a dangerous world. We were not the strongest predators, not the fastest, not the most well-armed. We survived through two abilities, endurance and pattern recognition. She activated a hologram. It showed ancient Earth, forests, plains, dangerous animals. Early humans hunted by persistence. We followed prey for hours or days until it collapsed from exhaustion. But to do this, we needed to track, to see a bent leaf or a disturbed stone and know which direction our prey went. We needed to predict where it would go next. The hologram changed. Now it showed a human brain, glowing with activity. The human brain developed the ability to recognize patterns with very little information. We can see a fragment and construct the whole. We can observe a trend and predict the future. We do not need all the data. We can work with what we have and fill in the gaps. Guessing, Dr. Cross said flatly. No, not guessing. Dr. Jiwan shook her head. Let me demonstrate. She projected a new image. It was a simple drawing, but parts of it were missing. Only about 30% of the picture was visible. Can anyone identify what this is? Dr. Jiwan asked. The aliens in the audience were silent. They stared at the incomplete picture. Some whispered to each other. No one answered. Dr. Jiwan turned to the human section. Jiho, what is this? Jiho barely looked at it. It's a bicycle. How do you know? I can see the wheel and part of the frame, that's enough. Dr. Jiwan nodded. She turned back to the council. Human children can do this by age 4. We show them incomplete pictures, and they identify them instantly. When we test alien students with the same images, even adults struggle. They need to see 70 or 80% of the image before they can identify it. She brought up another image. This time it showed test results, graphs and charts. Human brains process information differently than most species. You process sequentially. A leads to B leads to C. Each step must be completed before the next begins. Humans process in parallel. We see A, C, and E, and our brains automatically fill in B and D. That is not reasoning, Professor Kilvara said. That is intuition. Intuition is not reliable. For you, perhaps not. For humans, it is extremely reliable. Dr. Jiwan pulled up more data. We have tested this extensively. When humans use intuitive reasoning in their areas of expertise, they are correct 80 to 90% of the time. That is higher than most species achieve with step-by-step calculation. But you cannot verify the process, Veltaris said. If we cannot see the steps, how do we know the knowledge is genuine? Because you can test the knowledge through application, through questioning, through repeated demonstration. Dr. Jiwan looked directly at the headmaster. When a Lumian like yourself performs calculations using your crystalline neural matrix, you cannot show your work either. Your brain processes in parallel through quantum crystalline matrices. You simply know the answer. Do we call that cheating? Veltaris was silent. His crystal body pulsed with light. Dr. Jiwan pressed on. When a hexapod maintains 8 parallel thought streams, can they show us the work for all 8 simultaneously? No. We trust that their cognitive process is valid. Why should human cognition be different? Dr. Cross's tentacles stilled. Because we do not understand it. Exactly. Dr. Jiwan smiled sadly. You do not understand it, so you fear it. But just because something is different does not make it wrong. Ambassador Mira stepped forward again. The council must decide. Are you evaluating knowledge and ability, or are you evaluating cognitive style? If a student can demonstrate understanding through questioning, through application, through consistent results, does it matter how they arrived at the answer? The hall was completely quiet now. Every alien was thinking, processing, probably in their nice, neat, sequential way. Then Headmaster Veltaris spoke. "Lee Jiho, please come forward." Jiho's heart jumped. He stood up on shaking legs and walked to the center of the hall. Thousands of eyes watched him. He had never felt so small. "I am going to give you a problem," Veltaris said. "A new one. You will solve it. And as you do, you will explain your thinking. Not the final answer, the process. Can you do that?" "I'll try, sir." A hologram appeared. It showed a complex physics problem about gravitational interactions between three bodies in space. Jiho stared at it. The answer was already forming in his mind, but he forced himself to slow down, to find words for what his brain was doing. "Okay," he said. "I see three objects. This one is massive, so it's going to pull harder. These two are smaller and moving. The question asks where they'll be in 1 year." He paused. How did he explain the next part? "I can see the shape of their paths, not because I'm calculating each point, but because I see the pattern of their motion. This one will spiral inward. This one will slingshot around and fly outward. And this one?" He traced a path in the air with his finger. "This one will end up here." He gave the coordinates. Veltaris ran the calculation on his console. It took 30 seconds. Then he looked up. "You are correct, but how did you see the shape of their paths?" "I don't know how to explain it. It's like, when you throw a ball, you know where it will land. You don't calculate the parabola, you just know. This is like that, but with more complex patterns." "But I do calculate the parabola," Veltaris said quietly. "My mind does it automatically, but I am aware of each step." "And my mind does this automatically," Jiho said. "I'm aware of the pattern, but not each step. Different process, same result." Veltaris stared at him for a long time. Then he looked at Dr. Jiwon. "What you are describing is a fundamental difference in consciousness. Human minds do not work like any other known species." "Yes," Dr. Jiwon said. "That is exactly right. This changes everything," Professor Kilvara said. "If human cognition is truly this different, we cannot assess them using our standards." "Then we need new standards," Ambassador Mira said firmly. "Standards that value results and understanding over process and presentation. Standards that recognize that intelligence comes in many forms." Dr. Cross spoke up. "And what about cheating? If we cannot verify their process, how do we prevent actual cheating?" "The same way you prevent it with any species," Ambassador Mira said, "through oral examination, through practical application, through consistent demonstration over time. A cheater will eventually be caught. A genuine talent will consistently perform." The council members looked at each other. Jiho could not read their alien faces, but he sensed something shifting. Understanding, maybe, or at least the beginning of it. "We need time to deliberate," Veltaris said finally. "The council will meet privately. Lee Jiho, you may return to your seat." Jiho walked back to the human section. Yuna grabbed his hand and squeezed it. "You did good," she whispered. Ambassador Mira and Dr. Jiwon sat down near the human students. They waited. Everyone waited. Outside the windows, stars slowly drifted past as the station rotated through space. And in that moment, Jiho understood something. This was bigger than him, bigger than one test or one suspension. This was about whether humans belonged here. Whether different kinds of thinking could coexist in the galaxy. Whether the universe had room for minds that worked in ways nobody expected. The council did not make a decision that day, or the next day, or the day after that. 2 weeks passed, and Jiho remained suspended. The waiting was worse than anything else. News of the situation spread across the galaxy. Every day, more messages arrived at the Institute. Some supported the humans, many did not. The Hexapod Science Collective sent a formal complaint. If humans can bypass computational steps, they have an unfair advantage in all technical fields. This violates the principle of equal academic opportunity. The Lumian Educational Authority agreed. Standards must be universal. If we cannot verify human work, we cannot certify human knowledge. But others disagreed. A group of Cytherian philosophers wrote, "Different species have different strengths. We do not handicap the strong to make them equal to the weak. We celebrate diversity of ability." The debate raged on, and the council remained locked in discussion. Jiho spent his days in his room, studying alone. He was not allowed in classes, but Yuna brought him notes and assignments. Sometimes other human students visited. They sat together and talked about home, about Earth, about whether they would ever be accepted here. One evening, Doyen came to his room with news. The council is splitting. 3 members want to restrict humans to non-mathematical fields only. 2 want to create new testing systems. Veltaris is undecided. "So I might never get to finish my degree," Jiho said. "None of us might." Doyun sat down heavily. "There are human students at other institutions across the galaxy. Everyone is watching what happens here. If the Institute bans us from science programs, other schools will follow." Jiho had not thought about that. He had been focused on his own problem. But this was bigger. This decision would affect every human student in the galaxy, present and future. "We can't let that happen," Jiho said. "What can we do? We're just students." Before Jiho could answer, his datapad blinked. An emergency message. All students were to report to Assembly Hall immediately. The hall was chaos when they arrived. Students from every species packed the space. Teachers stood along the walls. The council sat at the front looking grim. Headmaster Veltaris called for silence. "We have made an attempt to solve this issue. We created new examinations, tests designed to be human-proof." He projected a sample test on the hologram. Jiho stared at it. The questions were incredibly convoluted. They required showing every single step, every calculation, every logical connection. There were spaces on the form where students had to explain their reasoning in detail. "This is impossible," Hana whispered. "It would take days to complete." "That is not our only problem," Professor Kilvara said. She looked unhappy. "We tested these new examinations on a sample group, both human and non-human students." Another hologram appeared. Test results. The human students had performed terribly. Their completion times were 3 times longer than normal. Their accuracy had dropped. Many had failed to finish at all. But the alien students had also done poorly. The tests were so complicated, so over-detailed, that even sequential thinkers struggled with them. "These tests are unusable," Dr. Cross admitted. "We cannot implement them institute-wide." "So what now?" someone called from the audience. "That is what we must decide," Veltaris said. A Lumian student stood up. "Why should we change our entire educational system for 15 humans? They should adapt to us, not the other way around." "We are trying to adapt," Jiho said. He stood up without meaning to. His voice came out louder than he intended. "Do you think this is easy for us? We're trying to slow down our thinking, to show work we do automatically. It's like asking you to explain how you breathe. How do you describe something you just do naturally?" "That is different," the Lumian student said. "Breathing is biological. Thinking is conscious." "Not all thinking is conscious," Dr. Jiwan said. She had been sitting with the Earth delegation in the observers section. Now she stood and walked to the center. "For humans, intuitive reasoning is as automatic as breathing. We can be aware of it, but we cannot easily control it. Forcing humans to think sequentially is like forcing a Lumian to think without using quantum crystalline processing. It reduces their ability." "So you want us to lower our standards?" another alien student said. "No," Ambassador Mira said firmly. "We want you to recognize that there is more than one type of intelligence, more than one valid way to arrive at correct answers." "But how do we test that?" Professor Shilvara asked. "How do we create fair evaluations if different students can use completely different methods?" Dr. Thrain spoke up. He had been quiet until now. "Perhaps we are asking the wrong question. We are asking, how do we make humans fit our system? Instead, we should ask, how do we create a system that works for everyone?" "That is what we attempted," Dr. Cross said, gesturing at the failed test results. "It did not work." "Because you tried to make one test that does everything," Dr. Thrain said. "What if instead we allow students to demonstrate knowledge in different ways? Humans can submit solutions with minimal work, but they must be available for oral examination. If they can explain and defend their answers, their knowledge is verified." "That would require enormous resources," Veltaris said. "Individual oral examinations for every human student on every test?" "Only when their work is questioned," Dr. Jiwan suggested. "If a human student consistently demonstrates understanding, trust builds, just as with any other student." "But that is not equal," the Lumian student protested. "Why should humans get special treatment?" "It is not special treatment," Yuna said. She stood up beside Jiho. "It is accommodation, like how the Institute provides different desk sizes for different body types, or different atmosphere mixtures for species that breathe different gases, or different lighting in different sections for species with different vision. The Institute already accommodates physical differences. Why not cognitive differences?" Silence fell over the hall. That argument seemed to land differently. Veltaris leaned back in his chair. His crystal body pulsed with thought. "That is a valid point." Over the next days, the debate continued. But it shifted. Students began talking to each other. Aliens asked humans to explain how their thinking worked. Humans asked aliens to explain their processes. Understanding grew slowly. One breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A hexapod student named Kritesh approached Jiho in the cafeteria. "I want to work with you on a project," Kritesh said. His 8 tentacles moved in patterns Jiho was learning to read as excitement. "I am good at systematic analysis. You are good at pattern recognition. Together we could solve problems neither of us could alone." They tested the idea. Kritesh would break down a complex problem into organized data. Jiho would look at the data and see patterns Kritesh missed. Then Kritesh would verify those patterns with rigorous analysis. Together, they solved problems faster and more accurately than either could alone. Word spread. Other students began forming mixed species study groups, humans paired with sequential thinking aliens. They learned from each other. Dr. Thrain documented everything. He presented his findings to the council. Human cognition is not a problem to solve. It is a resource to utilize. Mixed teams perform better than homogeneous ones. Cognitive diversity produces better results. But not everyone was convinced. Conservative council members still worried. "What about advanced degrees?" one asked. "What about research? If humans cannot show rigorous proof, how can they contribute to scientific knowledge?" "Humans can show proof," Dr. Jiwan said. "It just looks different. Let me show you something." She brought up research papers from Earth, mathematics, physics, biology, papers written by human scientists for human audiences. "Look at how we write proofs. We do show our work, but we show the important steps, the insights, the connections. We do not show every calculation because those are trivial to us. What matters is the logical flow of ideas." "That is insufficient," Dr. Cross said. "Is it?" Dr. Jiwan pulled up papers written by hexapod scientists. "Your species does the same thing. You maintain 8 parallel thought streams, but you only document the final integrated conclusion. You do not write out all 8 streams separately. You show only what other hexapods need to follow your reasoning. Dr. Cross's tentacles stilled. He had no response. Ambassador Mira stood. The question before this council is simple. Do you value cognitive style over cognitive results? Do you value conformity over diversity? Because if you ban humans from science, you are saying that only one way of thinking is valid, and that makes your claims of being a galactic institution a lie. Her words hung in the air. Harsh, true. Headmaster Veltaris rose from his seat. This council will deliberate, but I will say this. I have lived for 800 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed the discovery of faster-than-light travel and the first contact between species. And I have never seen a challenge quite like this one. He looked at Jiho, at all the humans. You have forced us to question our most basic assumptions about intelligence itself. That is uncomfortable, but perhaps that is what we need. The galaxy grows stagnant when all minds think alike. He turned to the council. We vote tomorrow. Jiho could not sleep the night before the vote. He lay in his bed and watched the stars through his window. Tomorrow the council would decide his future, the future of all human students in the galaxy. He thought about his parents back on Earth, his sister, his friends. He thought about how proud they had been when he was selected for the Institute. Would he have to go home in disgrace? Would he tell them he was kicked out for being too good at math? Morning came too slowly and too fast. Jiho dressed carefully. He wanted to look proper, respectful. He met the other human students in the hallway. They walked to Assembly Hall together. None of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. The hall was even more crowded than before. It seemed every student and teacher at the Institute had come to watch. Aliens of every species filled the seats. Jiho saw Kritesh wave at him from the hexapod section, a small gesture of support. The council entered and took their seats. Headmaster Veltaris stood. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. This council has deliberated for many days, he said. We have consulted experts. We have reviewed research. We have examined our own assumptions. And we have reached a decision. The hall went completely silent. Jiho held his breath. First, regarding Lee Jiho specifically, this council finds that no cheating occurred. Lee Jiho is officially exonerated. His suspension is lifted immediately. His perfect test score will stand. Relief flooded through Jiho. He felt like he might cry. Yuna grabbed his hand and squeezed it hard, but Veltaris was not finished. Second, regarding human cognitive abilities in general, this council acknowledges that human intuitive reasoning is a valid form of intelligence. It is not cheating. It is not technological enhancement. It is a natural biological capability developed through evolution. Murmurs ran through the crowd, some approving, some not. Therefore, the Institute will implement the following changes. Effective immediately, all students may submit work showing their cognitive process in whatever form is natural to their species. For humans, this means solutions may include end-state reasoning with minimal computational steps. However, students must be available for oral examination to verify understanding. Dr. Cross spoke up. I wish to note my objection to this policy. I believe it sets a dangerous precedent. Your objection is noted, Veltaris said. However, the majority of this council has agreed. We will also implement the following additional changes. More holograms appeared, new policies, new procedures. All courses will now include multiple assessment methods, written examinations, oral examinations, practical demonstrations, project-based evaluation. Students may demonstrate knowledge in whatever way best suits their cognitive style. Professor Kilvara stood. I support this decision. Furthermore, I propose we create new courses. Comparative cognition, cross-species collaboration. We should study and celebrate cognitive diversity, not suppress it. Agreed, Veltaris said. Finally, this council acknowledges a systemic bias in our educational methods. For too long, we have valued sequential processing as the only valid form of intelligence. We have failed to recognize that other cognitive styles can be equally valid. We commit to reforming our institution to accommodate all forms of thinking. He paused, looked directly at the human section. To our human students, we apologize. You came here in good faith. You performed according to your natural abilities, and we treated you with suspicion instead of curiosity. That was wrong. Jiho felt tears on his face. He was not the only one. Around him, other human students were crying too. Veltaris continued. This decision will extend beyond this institute. We will recommend to all galactic educational institutions that they adopt similar policies. Cognitive diversity should be valued, not feared. The hall erupted, some cheering, some arguing. Aliens talking to each other in dozens of languages. The translator in Jiho's ear could barely keep up. Ambassador Mira stood and bowed deeply to the council. On behalf of Earth and all human students, thank you. You have made a courageous decision. It was the logical decision, Veltaris said, even if it took us too long to see it. The assembly broke up. Students flooded out into the hallways. Jiho found himself surrounded by aliens wanting to talk, wanting to understand, wanting to apologize. A Lumian student who had spoken against humans before approached him. I was wrong about you. I spoke from fear, not knowledge. I am sorry. It's okay, Jiho said. This was confusing for everyone. Over the following days, everything changed. Jiho returned to his classes. His professors were different now, more open, more curious. They asked him to explain his thinking, not to catch him cheating, but to learn. Dr. Thrain started a new research project studying human cognition. Jiho volunteered as a subject. So did other human students. They wanted to help aliens understand. Kritesh and Jiho became official research partners. They co-authored a paper on hybrid problem-solving methods. It combined Kritesh's systematic analysis with Jiho's pattern recognition. The results were remarkable. They solved problems that had stumped researchers for years. Word spread across the galaxy. Other institutions began adopting the Institute's new policies. Human students at universities on distant worlds sent messages of thanks. Doors that had been closing were opening again. But the biggest change was cultural. Students began to see cognitive differences as strengths, not weaknesses. Study groups became more diverse. Humans worked with hexapods. Lumians worked with Cytherians. Everyone learned from everyone else. Una started a mentorship program. Human students taught aliens about intuitive reasoning. Alien students taught humans about rigorous systematic thinking. Both sides became better. 6 months after the vote, Jiho sat in advanced quantum mechanics. The professor was explaining a particularly complex theorem. Halfway through, she stopped. Lee Jiho, you look like you see something. What is it? Jiho hesitated. Old habits of hiding his thoughts died hard. But then he spoke up. I see a pattern. This theorem is similar to something we learned last month. If we approach it that way, the solution becomes obvious. Show us, the professor said. Jiho went to the board. He wrote the key insights, the connections, the pattern he saw. He did not show every calculation. He did not need to. The logic was clear. Does everyone follow? The professor asked. Some students nodded. Others looked confused. That was okay. The professor asked a hexapod student to fill in the detailed steps. Together, Jiho's insight and the hexapod's systematic work created a complete explanation. This the professor said, is how science should work. Different minds seeing different aspects of truth. All valuable. All necessary. After class, Jiho walked through the corridors of the institute. Aliens of all species passed him. Some nodded, some smiled. He was no longer the human who cheated. He was just another student. Different, but accepted. His datapad chimed. A message from Earth. From his sister Minji. She was starting university next year. She wanted to study xenobiology at an alien institution. "Is it safe now?" she asked. "For humans like us?" Jiho smiled as he typed his response. "Yes, it's safe. Come learn with us. The galaxy is ready." That evening, Jiho stood at his window again, looking at the stars, but this time they did not seem cold and distant. They seemed welcoming, full of possibility. Behind him, on his desk, sat his latest test scores. Perfect, as always, but now the perfect scores came with a note from his professor. "Excellent work. Your unique perspective continues to inspire." Unique perspective. Not cheating, not wrong, just different. And that was okay. 10 years later, Dr. Lee Jiho stood in a lecture hall at the Galactic Institute. He was teaching now. His course was called Applied Intuitive Mathematics, and it had a waiting list of 5,000 students. The class was full of aliens eager to learn how humans thought, but also full of humans learning to value their own cognitive gifts, and full of other species who had similar abilities but had hidden them thinking they were alone. Intelligence is not one thing, Jiho told his students. It is not a single path. It is a forest with countless trails, each leading to truth in its own way. Some of you will walk the trail of systematic reasoning. Some will leap between trees through intuition. Some will fly above and see patterns from above. All of these ways are valid. All are necessary. He looked out at his diverse class. Humans, Lumians, hexapods, Cytherians, dozens of species all learning together. Today, I will teach you not to think like a human. That would be impossible. Instead, I will teach you to recognize and value the way you already think, and to work with others who think differently, because that is how we solve the problems too big for any one mind. In the back of the room, Headmaster Veltaris sat quietly. He was auditing the class, as he sometimes did. He had lived for over 800 years and thought he understood intelligence, but these humans had taught him that he was still learning. After class, he approached Jiho. "You have changed this institution," Veltaris said. "When you first sat before my council, I saw a problem to solve. Now I see what I should have seen then, an opportunity to grow." "We all grew," Jiho said. "That's what happens when different minds meet, if they're willing to listen." Veltaris nodded. His crystal body pulsed with warm light. "I am writing my memoirs, 800 years of history. I am calling the chapter about your case, the exception that changed the rule." "What rule?" Jiho asked. "I thought intelligence was universal in its expression. That logic was logic regardless of species. You taught me that truth can travel many paths." Veltaris paused. "You taught me that different does not mean wrong. It simply means different. And difference is what makes the galaxy beautiful." They stood together in the empty lecture hall, teacher and student, human and alien, different minds that had learned to understand each other. Outside, ships came and went from the institute, bringing students from 1,000 worlds, each one with their own way of thinking, their own cognitive gifts, all of them welcome, all of them valued. And somewhere on Earth, a young student looked up at the stars and dreamed of joining them, of bringing their unique human mind to the galaxy, of showing the universe what they could do. The galaxy was ready. The galaxy was waiting. The galaxy had learned that the best solutions come not from everyone thinking the same way, but from everyone thinking their own way together. and it had all started with one human student who solved a math test too quickly, and an institution brave enough to admit it had been wrong.